Oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about, my god. So, this is going to be 2 days in one, because I did do the TDP yesterday and did not unmute my microphone. Fantastic. So, I'll be very brief on what happened there, because what happened yesterday was monumental. I was coming in the day before to just wreck Bazel and Joe. That's what I needed to do. I needed to wreck Bazel and Joe. I was full determined, and I had to wait the whole weekend to get my mind in the right place to tackle Bazel, who'd been artillery bombing the hell out of me. Interestingly enough, and I earned this, I earned it. I got fully prepped. I made potions and everything. I was like, right, I'm going in. I'm going to do everything I can to take on Bazel. And I had a quest to kill Bazel. It was like the big reveal, the mystery monster, blah, blah, blah. I'm going in to kill Bazel. I did really well. I did super well. I did really, really well. And as a reminder, if you're looking for our VODs, because we used to have a separate Twitch, YouTube VOD channel, it's just on the main channel now. We simulcast to YouTube, so the VODs are all there on our main Preach Gaming channel. So I almost guarantee, and I refuse to check, by the way, that this is scripted, what happened here. I battered Bazel. I did super well. I was tackling Bazel. I was bringing Bazel down. I was crushing Bazel. And at the lowest point, he was limping. He was definitely on low health. An enormous mega T-Rex, Angie's great big daddy called Joe, showed up, grabbed Bazel by the neck, swung Bazel around, did like 700 plus damage to him, and left him one hit away from death. Now, the irony of this is our blind run of this game has attracted the team at Monster Hunter. And they were in my chat, laughing and trolling along, and gave credit to Joe for my Bazel kill. I earned it, and I was so pleased, but I just knew that it was going to be historically remembered as like, well, you kind of did okay, but then Joe's the one who actually killed it. You were there, sure. But then immediately after, we got this big cutscene saying Joe is around, right? So for me, this is like a scripted moment where you tackle this big enemy, and then the next big enemy appears, and it's Joe. And that's where we finished that day, with this muddy, everyone memeing on me and laughing at me. But I don't care. I earned that kill. It was glorious. But let's skip to the next day. So, we finished the base game. Did not expect this to happen. Had no idea. It's the way it went down. And I think what's happened, which is very cool, is we've done so many optional side things that are harder than the story bosses, which is normal for any game, right? I'm not bothered by that. It's normal for any game. They're usually harder and tougher than the base game itself, than the actual story sort of required for progress type bosses. That makes sense to me. So we've done a lot of cool stuff, and on this day, I wanted to try out some new weapons. So I built myself a paralysis weapon that was as high tier. In fact, I maxed it out from where I could go to see how it works. Does it stack? I assumed it would build up paralysis like paralysis builds up on the player, and then eventually the enemy would become paralyzed. And in doing so, I did a number of very optional things to get some ingredients that I was missing. I did Black Diablos. That was a one-shot. Kind of cool. I did a number of like bonus Barros. I actually killed Black Diablos and realized that this is not the correct Diablos, because Black Diablos has entirely separate equipment to normal Diablos, and I had to go do Diablos Plus instead. So I had to kill multiple Diabloses. Azure, Rathalos. I was killing all these things to try and get some ingredients to upgrade this paralysis weapon and try it out. I was quite happy with it. It was alright. Like, when it procs, it was really nice. But it does sacrifice some of its normal damage to give you the paralysis bonus. My gut feeling is, and a lot of people keep asking me about other weapons, because I know, and I've pointed this out before, the game is designed around you utilizing multiple weapons. Like, if this boss is just significantly easier with a ranged weapon, and we're going to get to a boss that's like that, then you should just switch, because a good hunter is a master of all the tools. But as I've said many times, I just really like this gameplay, so I'm okay with it, even if it's, like, not efficient. I have more fun doing it. But at some point, we'll probably try out some other weapons, because I have no doubt as the game intensifies, like, the idea of using the quote-unquote incorrect weapon, or whatever you want to say, will become more problematic. So I'm definitely ready to do that. I'm just not there just yet. So I did all these side bosses, and I was like, okay, I've capped my paralysis weapon. But I'm very aware, although, like, this is where kind of streaming comes into it. Like, if I was playing this at home or offline or, you know, while watching the stream, I would happily go and farm some armor right now, because my armor is terrible. One thing I did realize here is that for at some points through the game, every time I had crafted my, like, alpha or beta armor that you can make, which is the high tier armor, it came out capped. It was like, you can't upgrade this armor. It comes out that well. I was like, oh, cool. But at some point, that had shifted. And now I had, like, 9 upgrade levels available for my armor. And I was like, oh, my God, I can actually just massively upgrade my armor that I like already. Because I was using Gordon armor. And it kind of works, although it's got a bad synergy with the paralysis weapon. So I realized, oh, I can bump up my armor, because I noticed the new armor that was coming in had, like, base defense of, like, 60 or something like that, where my Gordon armor was in, like, the low 50s. I'm like, that actually makes a big difference, because a lot of enemies, if they hit me, were just doing tremendous amounts of damage. And so it fought, but that did, in a weird way, it kind of works out, because it forced me to use my radial menu more and bind things to that, like getting the cat to drop stations and things for me everywhere. So that worked out kind of well. So I decided, once I had my paralysis weapon, not to, like, go on an armor farming spree. Instead, let's do some story. And it was about discovering the Elder Dragons. So, obviously, I've told you I finished the base game. So we killed all the Elder Dragons and the question mark boss at the end. I'm happy to say, based on what we'd already done, that these were all one-shots. I did faint a couple of times on the first one, I think. But other than that, we one-shot them all. And people... I'm preparing you Monster Hunter fans to be a little annoyed right now, because it was my experience. I'm always honest about my experience. Other people very much disagreed once we, like, finished up, and I was like, okay, we're done for the day. Do we want to do blind chat? We're going to the DLC. Blah, blah, blah. The first boss, which was Fire Dog, I forget the names of the bosses. The Fire Dog that we fought, that was the best fight, I think. That was the first one I did, was the Fire Dog. Beautiful scenery, beautiful set pieces, lovely mechanics, very well telegraphed, which is something I really enjoyed, especially because I didn't know it was going to be a fire boss, and I had negative fire resist, which makes this is why I fainted a couple of times. When I got set on fire, I was really ticking down. And I loved the way the environment was used. Like, it would leap into the lava to do, like, a lava breath across the entire room. It would elevate nice and slow to do a room-wide AoE. Very Dark Souls-esque, which I felt very comfortable with. So fighting this boss was not too, like, challenging to get in there. But I absolutely, like, adored this fight. Went across multiple arenas. Super enjoyed it. The next fight I did was the wind guy. I think he's called Douche or something like that. The wind boss. I don't know who designed the final phase of the Enrage of Douche, but they've got problems. They've got problems. I definitely could have used a ranged weapon here. Not that I knew I was coming into it, right? Not that I knew I was coming into this environment. I loved the fact that it made huge tornadoes, which meant that you couldn't utilize certain parts of the environment. Like, leaping on its back was much more difficult if it blocked off an area with a tornado. So it, like, changed the environment. I'm very used to that in other games. I thought, although it was very frustrating, the idea of it having a constant aura of wind, which pushed you back if you got too close in melee and just threw you away and, like, momentarily stunned you or dazed you, was cool. It made me rethink my positioning a lot. Instead of tucking right into the hitbox so I could, like, cleave it a lot. And often with these giant bosses, when they spin, the hitbox in the middle is not deadly. And you can actually, like, take no damage while still wailing away on the boss. That was fun, because I was like, okay, I can't do that. The issue was the last phase, which takes place with a central pillar in a very enclosed, like, donut-style environment. And you just, it has pre-positioned points. It's going to drop tornadoes, cutting the arena in half. And some weird things happened where I, like, couldn't climb on the middle platform to jump on it, but sometimes I could. Wasn't sure what that was about. But, like, overall, the last phase took, with the last 20%. I'm under the impression that when they start limping and going into, like, capturable phase, they're at 20% HP. So I don't know if that's true. Could be 30, could be 15. I don't know. But we'll just say they're at low health. That last 20% took as long as the first 80% of the HP, because I just couldn't hit it. No matter what I did, I couldn't hit it, and it was obfuscated a lot of the times. It could shoot its wind blasts through the central pillar, like line of sight didn't work there. It could still gust you back, constantly dazing you, constantly stunning you. And it was one of those, like, frustrating, I hate this experience, but at the same time, this is really cool and epic. It was fantastic. That was my first 2 bosses, right? Then it went off a cliff. And I'm really sorry this happened, because I heard from a lot of people like they love these fights. I hated these fights for different reasons. It's not like they were just bad. It was just the way they played out. And I think one of the bosses... Let's talk about the first one I found, which was Vaal. Vaal, obviously, to me, is Path of Exile. I was like, oh, it's Vaal. Cool. We're corrupting everything here. And I loved the Bloodborne-esque environment that we found. Very much reminded... The model was very much like the One Reborn or something like that, or Ludwig. Raising up, and then I got terrified, and I was like, oh my god, I am screwed, absolutely screwed, because it cut my HP in half. I was wearing my effluvia vest, which blocks the damage that the gas in the environment does, but he does like concentrate effluvia that just reduces your max HP by 50%. And then annoyingly the handler goes, well, you've brought nullberries, right? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. No, I haven't brought nullberries. And she's like, well, that's a shame, because now you've got no HP. And I was like, I'm screwed, right? This boss is clearly designed with you bringing certain materials with you to nullify these tough mechanics, but I'm going to get one shot when it melees me, right? Which is where I was kind of up to in the game. No, actually. And I do get why decisions like this are made, but I think they should double down if they make decisions like this in the future with, like, we're trying to teach you that you should be, as a prepared hunter, carrying things like this, like nullberries, which remove debuffs on you, right? Because in order for this to be doable, they dramatically reduce the amount of damage the boss does, so that half HP was actually plenty. It's fine. And for whatever reason, they also gave it very, very slow, meandering attacks. Like, this guy Vaal just kind of, like, stumbled around a little bit. And I was just able to just wail on this boss and keep chain CCing with my paralysis weapon and things like that. Just absolutely lock it down. And it felt like... It wasn't as hard as, like, Gordon 1. Or Baroth 1. Like, Baroth 1, I struggled a lot more with. Sure, I was worse at the game then, but, like, it just didn't do anything. And I was like, okay. And then it just died. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's over with then. Definitely a disappointing end to the Elder Dragons that were going on. And obviously, I'd learned by now that Elder Dragons can't be trapped or anything like that. So I was, like, crafting things. I'm looking for an ingredient, you know. It's called Nourishing Extract. I had some. Because I made Mega Demon Drug, which is the DPS potion, and I made Mega Armor Skin for defense, and now I don't have any, and I can't buy it. I don't know where that comes from, but so I got scuffed at this point. I was like, where is it? I was checking every vendor. I was like, I've had it at some point. I must have bought it. I can't craft it. I don't know what it is, but that's an aside. So I was like, okay, if we're gamifying this scenario, and I was talking about this as we were doing the Elder Dragons, the likelihood is we're going to do these 3, and then there's going to be the mommy Elder Dragon. That's a classic gaming staple, is like you've got these 3 lieutenants, and then you've got the big guy that's coming out of it. But that's not what happened. I want to point out, when this happened, I was very, very tired. We'd been playing for about 8 hours, and doing just boss after boss after boss. Like, we had done Nerd Gigante, Black Diabolos, Azure Rathalos, Diabolos Plus, 3 Elder Dragons. We had done new boss after new boss after new boss. I had to learn the mechanics in the fight and then overcome them while we were there. So I was really physically tired, and my eyes were actually burning. And I was like, okay. But the quest went... I was about to finish for the day. I'll be honest. It was already getting to like 5 p.m. And I was like, I'm probably just going to finish now. And the story, I was like, let's see what the story is, because what I assumed was going to happen is, like, some new tracks have appeared. Something big is awoken because we've done blah, blah, because we've killed the Elder Dragons, right? We've attracted the attention of something, and the new tracks have appeared. You've got to find out what this thing is. That's what I expected to happen, but that isn't what happened. And I was like, oh. In fact, the Admiral, or whoever he is, Mr. Cool, showed up and was like, we found a new zone. I'm like, wait, there's another zone? Is this for real? Like, are we only halfway through the game? Because I don't know, right? Are we only halfway through the game? We've got a new zone? What? oh my god. And I was like, okay, well, we should go and see what the new zone looks like to know what we're getting into the next day. Let's go and see what the hell's going on in this new zone. It's probably got some brand new bosses in it and see what's going on. That's not what it is. And I started to get a sniffer. And that sniffer was how dramatic everybody was being about what we're doing. It's like, are you sure you want to go here? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, for real though, are you ready for what awaits? I'm kind of looking at my screen going, I guess. What are we doing here? Because they're like, we found like the zone of energy and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm definitely getting a feeling, and I think I was actually there, because you have to take a boat. Some guy with a pencil mustache, this John Waters ass elf guy showed up, and he's like, I found the source. And I'm like, this is definitely feeling like a final boss moment. This is what this is feeling like. All the hairs were standing up, and the red flags, my spidey sense was tingling. This feels like a last boss. And I was stood before where you go on this boat to get to the source. I was like, I'm just going to go and sort my items out here, because I have a feeling we're about to uncover Mommy, and that's what's happening here. Although the implication was we were going to a new zone, which we do. I think this is just a big boss. Like, I was definitely they stressed it without saying, hey, you're going to fight a massive boss here. They were like, are you really sure you're ready for what's about to happen? And I'm like, I don't know. But my gut feeling was, let's go and try it. And then I can think about it overnight about what we want to do, because I was definitely getting a little tired at this point of my paralysis weapon. It's fine when you can wail away on things. It just locks enemies down. But when you can't get good uptime, you just don't get the build-up to chain stun. And therefore, it's just less damage than whacking away with it with something that's just really hard. So I was in that mindset. Anyway, we get on the boat, and sure enough, giant mega laser dragon appears. Now... I'm gonna throw a bone here, because I did not like this fight. However, and the game memes you for this, about 25% in, Handler just says, hey, have you noticed that your weapons with some sort of element don't work here? And I was like, yes, I've noticed. I am just fighting this thing with a toothpick. Which meant this fight, I think, took 35 minutes. And the boss just... I think even if I'd had a lot of damage... which I did not. I was tickling this boss for the most part. My thoughts on why I didn't enjoy it were actually that it was too large, which meant it had very sort of slow attacks. If any of you have played Dark Souls 2, it was like the ancient dragon fight. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't, it's similar to this fight in the fact that you're attacking its feet, essentially its toenails, because you very quickly realize that like the areas that are lit up are weak spots, and then you can like shatter them and go towards the other. So it's like front left foot is weak, shatter the foot, and then you can work on the front right foot, and then you can work on the tail, then you can work on the head, and then periodically it will regenerate those so they're weak spots again. That kind of idea. But it had... because of my low DPS, it also had tremendous amounts of HP relative to the damage I could do to it, which meant this fight went on forever and ever, and it just didn't have that many mechanics. It was very slow. It was a lot of just running to it, whacking on its foot, it repositioned, run to it, whack on its foot, and its damaging attacks weren't very large on the AoE, interestingly enough, especially if you stayed close. I imagine this fight is horrendous if you're a ranged player, as a guess, but as melee, I was just attacking toenails for a while and then getting a lot of environmental cut-off. So if it like shot its laser in front, if it had like knocked me somewhere, getting back in and weaving through the fire was kind of tedious to get back. I know if I had better damage, I would have just pummeled this boss down and would have done it in probably half the time, and it wouldn't have been a big deal. But ultimately, I one-shot it, and then the credits rolled, and I was like, oh my god. I know you guys probably want me to give in the detailed thoughts on the base game. I'm going to do that on the main channel. That's not the purpose of the TDP. It's more to keep you up to date of what we're doing and initial thoughts and things. There are things I discovered this day, such as I can eat at the camp. I can eat at the camp to get my buffs back, which is cool. I can also change my items if I'm there. If I need to restock mega potions or whatever, I can actually just do that at the camp, which is great. I found that out after some prompting, by the way. The clue I was given was explore your camp more thoroughly. This is a point I think a lot of people have been getting very frustrated by watching, and it was actually brought to my attention by our business manager, who went, his wording was, there's something that the game expected you to do at the start and you didn't do it, and it doesn't tell you to do it. And I think this is one of those things that people believe you get guided to do, and I don't think you do, but you might have done. I did skip a few tutorials after like an hour of tutorials, which is just explore your camp. I think the game just fully expects you to go and check out your camp. I didn't. I got a mission and was sent on my merry way, and the things with icons above them were the people there, like the handler and whatever, and the first team leader. So I spoke to them, and I saw an item box, but it's a supply box. It's not your item box, so that was off I went. So I did find those things out. But my goals now, I put it to the chat as like, is the DLC worthwhile? Because sometimes the DLC is not in many games, as we well know. Overwhelmingly, yes. So I guess it's about to get cold. We're off to Iceborne. I couldn't be happier because I did not want this to be over yet. So I'll see you there. Bye, guys.